Like its predecessor, Hollow Knight Silksong offers players multiple options for the final punctuation in Hornet's spectacular journey through the fallen kingdom of Farloom. Each has profound implications for Hornet's future, Farloom's fate, and the greater lore. Some are triumphant, some are tragic. We'll discuss each of the 4 endings with one additional scene, what exactly they mean, and how they come about. Let's dive in. The first ending, Weaver Queen, is the simplest to achieve and requires nothing other than defeating Grandmother Silk, Farloom's awoken Pale Monarch, at the top of the Citadel. From the very first moments after being unceremoniously beaten awake, Hornet makes clear her mission to uncover the truth of the Citadel. Without understanding the Church's motives, she'll never be rid of their pursuing agents, even were she to leave the kingdom. To access the Church's most sacred place requires Hornet to learn the threefold melody, a harmony sung from the ruling factions of the Conductors, the Architects, and the Vault Keepers. Playing the melody on her needle-in opens the lift to a most peculiar area. Rather than a grand entrance hall, a throne room, or royal dais, Grandmother Silk lies in a region called the Cradle. Besides a cot for an infant, a cradle is also a framework for support and means to hold or cushion while the object within rests. We see the pale monarch in deep slumber, bound inside a cocoon of silk. The cradle was meant to keep Mother Silk in torpor, but Farloom's decay led to her awakening. Hornet, being both a weaver spawn and a pale child, exists in a rather unique position. Weavers once ruled Farloom. Their memory and their power rest dormant, and as Hornet travels the kingdom, she binds more of her heritage. As daughter of Hallownest's Pale King, Hornet is a demigod, semi-divine with abilities that transcend normal bugs. Not only can Hornet dethrone Grandmother Silk, she can usurp the crown for herself and become Farloom's new Pale Monarch. In dialogue with the Caretaker, Hornet admits the nature of pale beings is to desire control, authority, and a people to rule. As she challenges Grandmother Silk, she faces the internal struggle of whether to liberate Farloom from its ruler or replace her. When Hornet defeats the pale being, she binds its silken power, consuming the Grandmother, and magically invigorated silk threads explode over Farloom. This alone is monumental for a kingdom that relies on silk as a technological and vital resource, but has had little access to new bolts since the weavers disappeared. Deep within a new cocoon, Hornet rests curled. To me, this means she's ousted the Grandmother, but rather than buck the system, has simply replaced her. Hornet's compassion and empathetic nature, however, might mean the citizens will be spared from the haunting that once controlled their minds. Here too we see new appendages jut out from Hornet, in allusion to Grandmother Silk's own nature. The alternate cutscene of this ending, however, does see Hornet embrace her nature as a pale being. She shoots tendrils of silk that reach out to the bugs of Farloom, that captivate them and leave them entranced. Though this is a topic for another time, at one point in history, the kingdom experimented with silk injection to extend the lives of its members. Over generations of genetic inheritance, all bugs within, and perhaps even many beyond, have woven into their shells tiny remnants of silk. It's this silk that the Grandmother's strands sought out to cause the haunting, and it's what allows the new monarch Hornet to directly seize the minds of those bugs beneath her and begin her dominant rule. The second ending, Twisted Child, revolves around the figure Greyroot, who is cloaked in the shadows of Shellwood Forest. Greyroot is unlike the bugs populating Farloom, and at first shares striking similarities to the White Lady of Hallownest. Both are viney, plant-like creatures bound to the sustenance of Earth through their strong roots. They share face and eye structure, and both are mother figures linked to the creation of life and obsessed with their progeny. The White Lady produced thousands of children with the Pale King, to be cast into the abyss and hollowed out by the void. And in conversation with Greyroot, she insists on the rebirth. The time of awakening and creation fast approaches. But here, the similarities end, and Greyroot cast in a more sinister shadow. Hornet approaches her hovel shaped from roots which we could assume came from her own body, and inside, she stirs from long slumber. Her sleep parallels Farloom's own grandmother Silk. There's nothing in the lore that confirms when she became dormant, but perhaps Greyroot withdrew around the same time as the Pale Monarch. This would suggest perhaps in opposition with the Weavers of Farloom. Now that Silk awakens, so too does Greyroot, and the time of rebirth draws nigh. In times past, Greyroot performed the rite of the polyp, using hapless pilgrims to aid in her concoctions brewed from polyp hearts. Such a ritual seemed to have produced toxic results, which we see in the polyp pouch given to Hornet as reward that coats her tools in poison. As we see later, in the Chapel of the Witch, many pilgrims became sacrificial victims in Greyroot's rituals. A second rite is necessary to prepare for the rebirth and centers on an object, a writhing, screaming creature that Hornet finds in bile water. Described as a contorted mass of ashen vine, the twisted bud is surrounded by roots and vines much like Greyroot and could be the young offspring of her kind, or else a parasite that they produce. Perhaps the consequence of the rite of the polyp. When Hornet gives the twisted bud to her, Greyroot attacks and injects Hornet's shell with the ashen bud. Hornet awakens where many pilgrims have died. It seems Greyroot sensed Hornet's semi-divine nature, or at least her strong connection to Silk and the magical sustenance it provides. Through Hornet, Greyroot plans the rebirth. To return to her nest sees Greyroot herself withered to ash, likely using up the last of her life force for the rite of renewal. While afflicted, Hornet can't heal, can't use her silk skills or generate more silk, suggesting the parasite inside eats at her soul and silk-producing ability. An interesting interaction unfolds that highlights the rapacious nature of the twisted bud. Ava, a creature woven entirely from silk, erects barriers to protect her and screams in fear when Hornet approaches, urging the vile monster within to leave. If Hornet confronts Grandmother Silk in this condition, the parasite inside senses the immense source of silk and power present in the higher being. It erupts from Hornet and violently consumes both of them. The cutscene shows Grandmother Silk and Hornet fossilized in the same manner as Greyroot. Their silk has been eaten, their souls hollowed out to nurture the growth of an unknown creature. It elicits a shrill scream as it breaks through Hornet's body. Whether the creature is simply another Greyroot or some form of dead god that Greyroot worships and heralds isn't certain. Perhaps a topic of exploration in future DLC. The third ending, Snared Silk, is only an ending in part, and leads to the fourth, final ending. To access, Hornet must first demonstrate her character growth and a vested interest in the fate of Farloom. By fulfilling wishes posted on wish boards, an ancient tradition within the kingdom, and perhaps tied to the old order of weavers once revered. Hornet brings stability to places like Bellheart, Bone Bottom, and Songclave. She assists Farloom's pilgrims and downtrodden, guides the flea caravan to safer pastures, is awarded her own bell home, and restores some of the kingdom's tarnished splendor. These actions prove to Songclave's caretaker that Hornet isn't simply here to take Mother Silk's position and begin the cycle anew, but to liberate Farloom from repeating history. Remarkable idea you're speaking there, Bellringer. A world cut free. Not a wish I've had much cause to hope, one serious like, but I ain't so surprised to hear you speak it. For all your helping, I've been seeing it clearer. You've still got the monarch in you, all right, in the glare of a weaver, but the ambition, that's wild different from both. From her first interaction with him, Hornet suspects the caretaker is more than he appears. He is a snail shaman. The snails first appeared in Hallownest and reprised their role as a mysterious race deep of knowledge and proficient in manipulation of soul's power. The caretaker tasks Hornet with one final wish: gather necessary material to construct a trap powerful enough to ensnare Grandmother Silk. Members of his snail family are scattered across Far Loom and carry vast reserves of soul required for the trap. Hornet gathers these and forgotten weaver technology within Weave Nest Atla, known as a snare setter, a device that weaves binding silk runes. Once gathered, the caretaker assembles the trap beneath Grandmother Silk in the cradle. Now, rather than bind Silk's primordial essence to her own, Hornet has the option to use the needle in on the defeated pale being. Doing so springs the trap and reveals its true nature. It's a spell of the void, a black, hungering substance opposed to soul that dwells deep beneath Far Loom. Silk attempts to drag Hornet down with her, but Lace, the silk-spun daughter of the Grandmother, rebels against her mother and purpose, severing the god's arm and falling herself within the void. In a grand implosion, mother and daughter disappear. But Far Loom's freedom comes at terrible cost and awakens a force long dormant. Void tendrils spring from the earth and race along Far Loom's silk threads. Motes of darkness capture the hearts of bugs and transform them. Worse still, Grandmother Silk isn't yet consumed. Her maternal instinct drives her to save Lace from the darkness. Earthquakes and uproars destroy Far Loom. They are the death throes of a god. All seems hopeless and leads to what some might deem Silksong's true ending. Lore from Hollow Knight supported the idea that the snails are a people that worship the void, or at least respect its power. But their knowledge of such a force is incomplete. The snail shaman mentions that his people never discovered the abyss beneath Hallownest, and much of their work into soul and void had to overcome ignorance and misinterpretation. The caretaker's trap exemplifies that even though they know a great deal, the snail shamans have much yet to learn. They hadn't predicted the snare would invigorate the void, and they didn't foresee the Grandmother resisting her final death. Hornet blames them and herself for Far Loom's doom, and resolves to repair the damage dealt. Using an old diving bell, Hornet navigates the abyss, dark home of the void, but can't approach the Grandmother without being consumed herself. To guard against the void, Hornet must reach into her own memories to manifest the Everbloom, a delicate flower that first appeared in Hollow Knight and demonstrates strong resistance to the void. But to draw substance from memory is no simple task. The shamans can perform a spell but need the beating power of Far Loom's stoutest hearts in their prime. Hornet must acquire the hearts of 3 beings who each in their own way resisted Grandmother Silk and once led valiant, independent tribes. The Crust King Khan of Coral Tower, Nihilith, the living avatar of Shellwood Forest, and Scar Singer Carmelita, Queen of the Ants. There's also a hidden conjoined heart of Verdania's lost rulers. The snail shamans consume these hearts and themselves to fuel Hornet's entry into her own red memory. Here, she relives moments of her past with Hallownest's 3 queens. Hera, her mother and leader of the weavers of Deep Nest. Vespa, the queen of the beehive, and the White Lady, consort to the Pale King. From the White Lady, Hornet is given the Everbloom. Fearless, Hornet dives into the Void Lake, and as she descends, the Everbloom protects, but tendrils eat at its petals. This spells a one-way journey. Within a chamber, we see what's become of Grandmother Silk. She's exhausted her entire silk reserves to weave this cocoon in hope of saving Lace. Her power is spent, and darkness eats her. All for naught, as Lace is already lost to the void and offers one final, abyss-fueled confrontation against Hornet. With her defeat, Lace is momentarily liberated from the void's possession. Hornet grabs her and shows Grandmother Silk that she intends to save Lace. This is the Pale Monarch's last desire. She expends what little life force remains to fuel Hornet's ascent to the surface and allows herself to pass into oblivion, knowing her daughter will survive her. The two jettison upwards, but the Pale Monarch's silk and even the Everbloom aren't enough to breach the surface. With no protection, void tendrils drive at the drowning Hornet and Lace. But as all seems lost, the Shade of the Night, savior of Hallownest, appears and brings the pair to the surface. The void retreats, Farloom's destruction ends. Now, there's a lot going on with this scene, so let's take some time to break it down. For those who haven't played Hollow Knight or watched my video on Hornet's story, the Pale King, ruler of Hallownest, experimented in the abyss and filled the husks of thousands of his children with void to create vessels. The purpose of these vessels was to trap the Radiance, another godlike being, and curb the infection that led to Hallownest's downfall. The Hollow Knight, the Knight, and all other vessels are children of the Pale King. So too is Hornet. Daughter of Worm and Weaver, Hornet was the promise made for her mother Hera's sacrifice as a dreamer. So Hornet is sister to the Knight and all other vessels. In the course of the first game, she realizes the Knight's potential in saving Hallownest from its stagnation and offers aid in the Knight's journey. This scene, in essence, shows that the Knight remembers Hornet, that all the vessels see her as family and fly to her rescue. This also ties in with the ending's title, Sister of the Void. In theory, vessels are supposed to be devoid of will, devoid of mind, devoid of voice, and any sense of identity that the Radiance could corrupt. But the story of the pure vessel, the Hollow Knight, demonstrates its impossibility. No thing, not even a creature endowed with the void, is completely empty. And so it is that we see how the Knight has retained at least some of its memory and will from the first game to resist an unthinking attack on Hornet. The Knight appears before her as the void-given form, essentially a larger form of the Knight with void tendrils emerging from its back. This is tied to the Knight's acquisition of the Void Heart in the first game. This is the void-stained version of the King Soul charm and reads, "An emptiness that was hidden within, now unconstrained, unifies the void under the bearer's will." Void is power without unity, but through sufficient will, the Knight unifies the void, gives it form, and becomes the Lord of Shades. Now, we also see flashes of a monstrous form with predatory eyes. This is the ultimate form of the void entity, void-given focus. First seen in the Embrace the Void ending of Hollow Knight, where it savagely destroys absolute radiance. The void entity reappears before Hornet. I believe this is the true form of the Lord of Shades, the God of Gods, and the void entity. I think it hides behind the familiar face of the Knight for Hornet's sake, and to show us as players that the essence of the Knight from the first game still lives on at the heart of the void. This ending has immense implications for Hornet's future. She's the daughter of a pale being, and the sister of the void, two entities that are naturally opposed to one another. Possessed of immense power in her own right, with the void as an ally, there seems little in the future that could stop Hornet, no matter her desire. The final scene is connected to one of the most obscure characters found in Hallownest, who reappears in Silksong's Far Loom, Mr. Mushroom. Also known as the Master Herald, Mr. Mushroom is a traveler in the Ruined Kingdom that speaks words the Knight can't understand unless the Spore Shroom charm is equipped. The Herald's visited many lands, seen them rise and fall, and his coming is meant to herald the passing of one age to the next. Dreamnail dialogue reveals, "Worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall. Caps and shells may fall to dust, but Mr. Mushroom readjusts." The character is found several times in his circuitous journey. If the Knight finds him in all locations, Mr. Mushroom states that his duties to catalog civilizations to bring about new ages whatever they might be, are complete and he must quit Hallownest. A final cutscene shows the herald shooting through the sky with swirling eyes that might suggest the prescient vision he possesses. It's little surprise Mr. Mushroom emerges in Farloom, another kingdom in convulsive death throes that mark an end of an era. Again, he's found in various regions, and again, he's lost within his own mind, meditating without taking notice of Hornet until their final meeting. To play the needle in for him reveals, lies and truths must be discussed, stone will break and steel shall rust, caps and shells may fall to dust, but Mr. Mushroom readjusts. Which echoes his dream nail, though this time tailored to Farloom. It's deceptions and truths hidden beneath cogwork and earth. The readjustment Mushroom speaks of could be his own foresight adjusting to actions of the present. In final dialogue with Hornet, he does mention that the now, the present, is a great cloud to his vision and in constant flux. But it's also the most lively time, and should be embraced. If any other could come to understand that state, worm child, I suspect it may be you. Though maybe not yet, not this present, Maybe in a future far, when your actions might hail me so again. His words hint that Hornet's own future sight might be awakened, a subtle nod to the power the Pale King was purported to have in the original game. With the wish fulfilled, this hidden ending again shows Mushroom rocketing through the sky above the nameless town where he is last met. Another kingdom has fallen, another age has passed. Thanks so much for watching this video on the endings of Hollow Knight Silksong Explained. Let me know which ending you went for and which ending's your favorite, as well as what other characters or stories from Silksong you'd like to learn about in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel where content is uploaded frequently. I want to take a moment to thank all of my patrons over on Patreon. Their support means the world to me and helps the channel continue to improve. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, written scripts and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.